Alright everybody, this is my spoiler discussion for Star Wars Rogue One, or Rogue One, a Star Wars story. If you don't want to be spoiled, there's a link in the description over to my spoiler-free review where I keep it super duper vague, especially because it was my second time doing it, so it's incredibly vague because I don't like giving anything away. First thing I want to talk about though are the Obi-Wan Kenobi references, and in general, the Star Wars references, which particularly are of course A New Hope references. The Obi-Wan references, of course, we have Bail Organa, which is, once again, a nice cameo. We have him talking about Obi-Wan, like, I'll get in touch with my Jedi friend. We have, where was it? Was somewhere else. I'm losing it now. I can't remember what the second... Oh, we have the dudes in the city within the Jedi Temple that Obi-Wan, where he chopped the arm off of one of the dudes, or, the fly-looking creature. So they bump into them, and I was like, that was awesome that they did that. They managed to definitely make it out of that city in time. And then we have, I think it's after the first time they show Jedha, and I believe it's when Bodhi first gets captured, and then they show like that big Jedi statue like laying sideways. When I saw that, I was like, that looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then the next scene, they show a brand new planet, and it's called like Kobana or something like that, and if you switch the letters around, it spells out Obi-Wan. So I believe that that was a reference because that was supposed to be, and I wish I could remember his name, but I believe that that statue was meant to represent the original actor who was in A New Hope that played Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I thought that was cool. I could be wrong, but I'm like, I was like, that looks like Obi-Wan, and then the next planet, I was like, that definitely spells Obi-Wan if you switch the letters around. So I do believe that that was a reference to him. Within that statue is meant to look like the original actor who was Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I thought that was cool, unless I'm totally wrong and somehow that's like a super epic coincidence. But that's just what I felt. Moving on from that, I want to talk about, of course, the story of Rogue One. I thought this was really cool. The opening, which is crazy. It did... I mean, I can't call this a typical movie opening. That's unfair to say because movies have different openings. But Star Wars has the same opening all the time. It is Lucasfilm, boom, Star Wars theme. No Star Wars theme because it's a Rogue One, it's Rogue One, a Star Wars story, so we didn't hear the typical Star Wars theme. I don't think it's anywhere in the film, even low. It might be in there somewhere super low. I know some of the character themes show up, and they might play the main theme at the very end when Leia shows up, and it's like, fairly low, but it's Vader's theme, and they have a slower version of Vader's theme. It's not as fast, which I actually loved. I was like, that's actually kind of cool because it's just him. It's not Imperial Darth Vader where he's with the troops and everything. It's like, it's just Darth Vader. We see him in the tank and everything, which I thought was actually really cool because you don't get that in Star Wars at all, really. That was just one of the many things I loved as far as finally this is on the big screen where everyone who likes Star Wars gets to see all the stuff that I love about Star Wars, because kyber crystals, they even say it's like, what do you know about kyber crystals? Like, they're used to make Jedi's lightsabers. I'm like, finally, 7 films, and this is the first time people are learning about that, unless they're clearly super nerdy like me. So that I loved. I was wrong because when I first saw the trailer when Jen's mother gave her that, I didn't think it was a kyber crystal because I'm so used to seeing them. It's like the jagged crystals and stuff. I was like, that's probably not a kyber crystal. And then it turns out, yeah, it was totally a kyber crystal, which would have been awesome if she actually used it to make a lightsaber. I figured that wouldn't happen, but I was like, somewhere in my mind, there's a fan fiction about her just plucking that bad boy off and somehow having all the other components to make a lightsaber. But I love the way they did this story. It starts off with no opening crawl. It literally starts off. And I like the way they did it because they're like, we got to do something. It can't just be a cold open. It was like, boom! And then it's like just a huge sound effect, basically. It wasn't even a theme. It was just, boom, it's Star Wars now. And it's just, it starts. And I was like, whoa. It's already playing. There's no opening crawl. But then I'm like, what the F are they going to say? The Clone Wars just ended. Like, thanks. Saw that in the Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith. And currently Star Wars Rebels, so we kind of got that already. So what could they possibly say that wouldn't be exactly the same as A New Hope? So it almost made a ton of sense that they couldn't possibly have that. But it starts off with amazing imagery when they're on the planet. Like this and Force Awakens have made me want to travel like crazy. I'm like, I've never seen places like this. Like they're like grassy mountains plus all the open field of black sand. I've never seen an image like that before. I've seen black sand and I've seen grassy mountains, but I've never seen them to combine together like that. And I thought that looked amazing to me. So we have the opening. Um, we have Jen's parents and her mother being killed, who is also dressed like a Jedi. I feel like her mom may have actually been a Jedi, or at least was training before Order 66 or something. That might be like Wikipedia or something already, but I'm like, she was dressed like a Jedi. She gave her the Kyber crystal. Maybe that was supposed to be hers before everything fell apart and she never got to make a lightsaber. But I'm like, she looks like an actual Jedi right now. So there might be something to that. Sadly, not much, because her mother was killed. And so, we have the opening, and so she goes into the thing, and then Forrest Whitaker comes and gets her, because, of course, I don't remember his name from the movie. And then it's just, boom, Rogue One. And then it continues on. So it's like, holy crap, crazy opening. But it continues on from there, skip a bunch of time. Then we get, oh crap, I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. I think someone's plowing snow. But we get Cassian, I believe, because, of course, all I think is Calrissian when I hear his name. But we get Cassian, and I loved his opening sequence. He gets the information, he kills the 2 stormtroopers, which is super cool. He's like, let me, and then he does like a crazy quick turn and shoots both of them. And the guy starts freaking out. He's like, what did you do? Like, I can't climb this because of my arm. And I'm like, okay, how is he going to help him out of this situation? Because they're on the same side. It was very clear that this dude was kind of helping. He's clearly helping the Rebel Alliance. And it's like, alright, how is he going to help this dude? And he's like, don't worry, we'll both be fine. And he just shoots him in the back and he kills him. And I was like, holy crap, this is dark. Like, as soon as that happened, that's when it was dark. I was like, alright, the Empire killing somebody and kidnapping, somebody and forcing a little girl to run off. That's the Empire, whatever. This guy is with the Rebel Alliance, and he got information from another Rebel. And he's like, well, they're probably going to torture you, and you'll tell them what you told me. So, I just got to kill you now. I got the information I needed, and whatever. And he just kills him, and I was like, wow, you don't see that in Star Wars. Like, he just killed a dude who was a good guy. And I wish they touched on that a little bit more, honestly, like some of the darker stuff that the actual Alliance does. And they reference it a little, like, right before they go on their final mission. And he's like, we've done things where, infiltrators and saboteurs, and he was just like assassins. And I was like, yeah, that's stuff we don't see in live action, which hopefully we actually get a full movie of that. Like, I'd love to see like an even darker side where it's just one person going on these missions. That would be great. They might not do that in movie form, but I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be amazing to see based on like even the glimpse. I was like, I could use more of that in live action. But I thought that was great. And then we get to Jeddah, and we get to, the first kind of big battle within the city, which was really great, in the Jedi Temple, which I loved. And having just all sorts of nerd moments about that, because I never realized from the trailers that they were within a Jedi Temple until I saw it in the film. And I paid attention, because they all looked the same. And it was like, I noticed the points were on multiple ends. And I was like, this is a Jedi. They're on the Jedi Temple. I thought they were on the same planet as it, and the temple was somewhere else where we'd get to like see it. But then I just paid attention. I was like, that was the Jedi Temple the whole time. They built a city on top of where these Jedi used to be, and that like blew my mind for some reason. I guess because all of Star Wars, like, they made a city within, or at least on top. I mean, it was pseudo within, kind of on top. I'm sure there were a lot of extra caverns that we didn't get to see. But I thought that was crazy. And then, of course, we have our cool opening sequence, or opening battle. And then we have the destruction of the temple, and we have, like, our first our second, death as far as Jen is concerned. And it's in Forrest Whitaker's character, who I was surprised that he wasn't in it as much. Although I was happy, mostly because of the fact that I prefer to see people that I don't know as much in Star Wars. It's kind of weird for me, personally. So he wasn't in it too much. And also, I thought it made sense, considering they made him, like, where he's, like, super weak and stuff like that. It was, like, he's, like, I'm tired of running, and that was pretty much it. It was a little weird, but personally, I was, like, I'm fine with that. I was, like, alright, it makes sense. He was barely, even with robot legs, I was, like, he's walking super duper slow. When they first show him, I thought that was so weird. I was like, oh, I thought it was kind of like aesthetics, like he had the stick and stuff. I was like, no, even with robot legs, he can barely move, which is nuts to me. So I was like, all right, he wouldn't have made it out anyway because everybody took off as soon as things started shaking. So he, of course, is like our first big death for Jen after she gets the message from her dad. And then we have the epic sequence, of course, the Death Star. I loved how they used it. I didn't think they'd even use it in this movie. But we see a whole new side of the Death Star where it's like, oh, we're going to use a fraction of the power and destroy one city instead of one planet. And I never would have even considered what would happen if, I mean, it still looks exactly the same. Like, all the beams still come out, but it's more the power within the Death Star that's lessened. And it destroys the city slash temple. And I love the way it happened. It was like an insane super nuke. And it causes, after the incineration and, the point of impact, everything else is like, alright, everything's just like being sent out in a shockwave. And then eventually, everything crumbles up so much it starts to build. And it just starts, basically the whole planet, it's, from their perspective, like you can't see past it. The planet is basically flipping on top of them as they're trying to fly out. And I love that sequence because, especially there's that one part where, because they're, in the mountain facility basically, the ground is flipping up and it comes down and it hits the top of the mountain. So you have a mountain that's already sticking, who knows how high up in the air. They're in the ship already. And the ground comes down on top of it and basically rocks hit each other in midair next to the ship. And I was like, this just looks amazing. I thought it was like a sandstorm or something that they were in the trailer. And then seeing it, I was like, wow, I never would have guessed that that was a city destroyed by the Star Destroyer. Or by the Death Star, sorry. But I love that sequence. And then after that, I mentioned this in my spoiler-free review. After that, I felt there was a bit of a lull. I thought they're going to, they basically they talk about what they're going to do, and then they go to Yavin. So they go to Yavin 4 and stuff, and it's like, okay, they're talking about it and talking about it. It's like, okay, that makes sense because they just got the information, so of course that's where they should go. And then it's like, all right, well, that's what's happening next. They have to go. The story started to converge a little because we have our main villain where he's like, all right, this has happened, and he's dealing with Tarkin and stuff, so I'm going to go and figure out what this issue is, because you realize that, the pilot, Bodhi, had to have been working with one of the engineers or something. So it starts to converge a little bit. But before that convergence, it's like, alright, they're talking when they're leaving, then they're talking on Yavin, and then they're talking in the ship, and they're talking when they get on the planet. And I was like, this is a lot of talking and not enough action. Even when it splits back and forth, which the Empire stuff was beautiful. Everything with the Empire, admittedly, I think was like 100% perfect. Even the main villain, I loved his story arc because his whole thing, he was basically the kid that wanted attention from his parents, but it wasn't whiny. And it was like all he wanted was recognition. Like, I'm basically the conceptualizer of the Death Star. And I'm the one who found him, our main engineer that technically they didn't need, but of course everyone thought they did. It's like, I'm the one that found him, and I'm basically the one that made this whole thing possible. And it works. See, we destroyed this, and you should tell the Emperor that, and I'm doing great and everything. That was his whole thing, the whole film. That's all he wanted was his recognition. Thought he was going to die like 2 separate times. So they're on the place where Jyn sees her father, and of course the rebels come in and they kind of F up. They drop that bomb. I thought both of them were going to die in that scene, but the villain survives. Her father, he gets killed off, so death number 3 for her. But, he has that moment. After that, he goes through and is like, alright, he goes to Darth Vader. So I thought he was going to die there. Then he goes to talk to Vader. And Vader's walking away. He's like, so I'm still in charge? And as soon as he stopped, I was like, oh, guess he's over. Bye-bye to this dude. And, of course, the hum comes in. Like, you just hear, like, that weird hum. And he's still talking to him. He's about to stop. And, of course, he starts getting force choked. I was like, well, he's gone. He's officially gone now. Vader doesn't stop. Well, he does stop, of course. But I didn't think he was going to with this character. And even Vader kind of disses him in this because he's like, don't choke on your own aspirations. I was like, wow. Even Vader kind of just put you down like that as he was force choking you. That's super embarrassing. So he still survives that. We go through. He's like, alright, Tarkin can't take over for me because, I'm actually doing good enough. And we get to the end, and all he wants is for stuff to go right for him. I'm the reason this exists for the Empire. I want my due. He ends up on the planet where everything starts going wrong in the final battle. He gets to Jin, and he gets shot, and I'm like, okay, he survived. So we have Cassian and Jin going down the elevator stuff, and he gets up. And he gets up after being hit, and he looks over the horizon, and he sees the Death Star coming up. And I was like, wow, that is so effed up, because he knows what it's there for. And it was just sad. Like, all the sad stuff going on with the main characters, they're all dying off one by one. And then this dude's story was just like, almost on a more personal level to me, it was just like, wow, all the stuff he just went through, and his creation is what destroyed him, you know? And the way they did it was crazy too, because it wasn't like he died because of the explosion. He was hit by the laser. Like, they shoot the laser. They had to have done that on purpose. Like, where is he at? Oh, he's right here. Let's shoot through him and then hit the water, because the beam goes straight through the satellite station, like right off the top. It just hits the satellite, hits that whole deck, just debris. And I was like, wow, he's dead. And this thing, it moves so fast, you know, it's like a frame. But I know for a fact, because of the way it did it, of course, it had to have hit that before it hit the water. And I was like, wow, that was so fast I couldn't even recognize that he was dead before that explosion went off. Like, he was oh, he's dead too. So it was just crazy the way that, like, his story played out, where all he wanted was his due, and things just kept going wrong for him, and then he gets killed by basically his his own aspiration. And I thought that was just so messed up for him. Even as a villain, it was like, wow, that really sucks for that guy. But I loved what they did with it. And then, of course, you have Rogue One itself. I didn't think everyone was going to die. I figured one person would live, and I didn't think it would be Jen. I thought for sure she's going to die, but someone else will live. And that was not the case. You know, it starts with K2, and I was like, that's one. And then I believe Bodhi was the second person. I was like, yep, that's two. And then it gets to Donnie Yen's character and his buddy. And Donnie Yen's character was super cool, and it was also a funny sequence, because he was so in tune with the Force, he turned all the stormtroopers classic, because they just kept missing, which I thought, I was trying not to laugh. I'm like, this is a serious scene, I shouldn't be laughing, but it was like, if you're a big fan of Star Wars, you know that's how it is. Like, man, they suck at aiming, so it just made it kind of funny to me that they were missing all of a sudden. I was like, man, it's supposed to be cool because he's using the Force, but it was also kind of funny because suddenly they're just missing. And I was like, it was supposed to be serious, but it was a cool sequence. And then he turns it on, of course, they blow up the thing. 3 of the people die from explosions, by the way, because, I guess technically, they all die from explosions, because K2 was being shot up, but technically he died when he hit the thing. It, like, blew up in his face, and that's what took him out. Of course, Jen and Cassian, they died from the explosion. Bodhi was destroyed on the ship because they weren't using normal thermal detonators. Those like super detonators, and it just destroys the whole ship. He couldn't escape from that. Man, like almost everyone died from an explosion, I think, at least main character wise. But after that, Donnie Yen's character, he died because the explosion hit him in the back and it took him down. And then his buddy died, which really sucked because he killed that stormtrooper. And I thought he was going to fall back and blow up, and we'd see him go a little bit further. But it fell towards him, and it was like, I can't get away from that. And we see the explosion. Like, it was absolutely insane how big that explosion was from that little thing. And I'm like, I'm used to, like, just thermal detonators. They blow up, but those blow up, like, rooms. These were blowing up, like, ships and, like, buildings they could have blown up, you know. So, he dies in that explosion. And it was just really intense. Like, every single one of them actually died, and that made it super depressing. I was like, wow, I thought at least one would live, and it's like, yeah, we won't ever see them again because maybe they just die of old age or whatever, they get out of the game sort of thing, or whatever. But every single one of them dying really surprised me. I was like, wow, I just didn't see this coming, that they would all be taken out like that. And of course I knew it would start in the final battle, because the whole movie, I'm like, okay, I thought they would kind of do it like that, where they die off like a little bit here and there. It was like, nope, everyone in the final battle, because I was like, they made it, and I was like, dang, this is going to suck, because I know it's going to be more than one person that dies, and it's going to start picking up soon, because we're hitting like those final minutes. And then it started with K2, and then it just kept rolling in, and I was like, wow, they killed them all. And then, the Death Star comes in, and as soon as they mentioned that too, I was like, I don't think this is going to end like I thought. There weren't like they can't make it away from that blast in time. They can't get to a ship and take off fast enough. And it didn't even hit the actual base. They aimed near the base, and they just had to wait for it. And they do the hug, and that's it. And I was like, wow, that's super effed up. And then of course, the Alliance takes off, and even then, Vader comes in with his Star Destroyer and kills a couple other random people because the ship was about to leave. The Star Destroyer basically flew right into them as they came out of hyperspace. And it was just like, boom, and like the ship just kind of like hit them at the last second and like tore apart. And I was like, that's effed up. They're about to escape. All the rebels were about to survive, and they got killed. And the battle itself lost a ton of good Alliance characters and stuff. People on X-wings, people on the planet. That little Hammerhead ship, which had a super awesome sequence where a Star Destroyer lands in another Star Destroyer, which lands on the shield generator, which was absolutely cool because I'd never seen that. That I loved, but they died too, because if you watch that sequence as they're falling into the shield generator, that little ship, because of course it's way back, it's a wide shot, that little ship is still in the side of that Star Destroyer, and it was nuts. But love that. Grand Moff Tarkin, unbelievable. My thing's gonna run out. I don't have enough time to even talk about how amazing he was, because the CG was phenomenal. For those of you who might not know, the actor that played him died in 1994. I didn't know that. I thought he died this summer, but that was a different person that died this summer from Star Wars. And they did, like, I knew it was CG, but I was like, oh, it's CG because they had to make him look younger, or like a tiny bit younger, really, because it's right after, especially because it literally leads into A New Hope, which I loved because I never expected that. But when I found out that he died, I think it was over 20 years ago, because it was 1994, so yeah, over 20 years ago, I was like, holy crap, he wasn't in this at all. And it was absolutely phenomenal. It looked real. Like, my girlfriend didn't even know that was CG. Like, that's how real it looked to her. Like, she had no clue that he wasn't actually there. And, excuse me, I don't know if every movie can do CG like that forever, and I know they can't because that probably cost them $1 zillion, but it was phenomenal. And his character was great too. Like, he was just pissing that dude off, but it was awesome to watch. So loved him. That was the best thing. The Empire was just the best part of the whole film, and of course, Vader at the end. I love Princess Leia with the CG there as well. That was great. Vader at the end, though, just going through, I could watch that for that scene as the length of the entire film. I could watch 100 times. That was phenomenal. I wish it was longer, of course, like everyone will once they see it. But it was beautiful. Like, he goes in. I swear, they had, like, he was like a demon. There, I swear to God, there was, like, black. Like, it got darker before he even showed up. Like, he walked in, and, like, the size of the screen started to get darker. And I'm like, it was perfect. And lightsaber comes on, and it's just this, and the guy he holds on the ceiling and then walks past and just does this behind him. Perfection. But I love the film overall. And I'm excited to see it on Sunday because I'm going to see it with my dad and my little cousin. I'm curious to see what my little cousin thinks with all these people dying. But I loved it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Anything and everything you're thinking about this film. Are you going to see it again? How many times? What you think? Where you rank it? All that stuff. And of course,